Welcome to This Week in Christian History, a podcast from the Center for Christian History at Mississippi College. The Center for Christian History is dedicated to expanding knowledge and understanding of Christian history. Our mission is to provide a scholarly, unbiased look at the events, figures, and movements that have shaped Christianity over the centuries. You can visit centerforchristianhistory.com for daily historical highlights. And each week on this podcast, we'll do a deep dive into key moments with Christian history's leading authorities. Our first historical highlight for the week is the British Parliament's approval of both the larger and shorter catechisms. The approval took place in the midst of the English Civil War on September 15, 1648. The Puritan-led Parliament had passed the Westminster Confession of Faith just 2 years earlier. Our next historical highlight is hymn music writer William J. Kirkpatrick. Kirkpatrick was a Civil War veteran and a lifelong student of hymns. He wrote the music for We Have Heard the Joyful Sound, Jesus Saves, Jesus Saves, He Hideth My Soul, Redeemed How I Love to Proclaim It, and 'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus. He also wrote both the words and music to Lord, I'm Coming Home. Kirkpatrick died at his Philadelphia, Pennsylvania home on September 20th, 1921. Our final historical highlight for the week, and the subject of our deep dive, is the official ratification of the association known as the National Religious Broadcasters, or NRB. The NRB had been founded in April of 1944, but it wasn't officially ratified until September 21st of that year. Today in our deep dive, Nick Walters, director of the Center for Christian History, talks with Troy Miller about the official ratification of the NRB.
Hey, welcome back to yet another great episode of This Week in Christian History. And this week of September 15th, we are focusing in on an occasion of September 21st, 1944, which was the founding of the National Religious Broadcasters. And we are pleased to have as our guest today, Troy Miller, who is the president and CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters, who's going to give us some more great info about the good things that you guys do. So thanks for joining us, Troy.
Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be with you guys.
Absolutely. So obviously, this was not something that they were worried about per se in the Reformation, or something that was going on during the first or second Great Awakenings. And so it's my guess is, even though they were all broadcasting and doing it their own way, it wasn't like they were together as an association, and electronic communication probably became the mother of necessity of invention for something. Is that kind of right, or do I have that totally backwards?
Yeah, it is kind of right. You know, Christians have always struggled to have their voices heard in the public square. But when electronic media came about, specifically in 1944, radio, so when radio became this new form of mass media, you know, there was a group of pastors that thought, well, right away, they were innovators. They were right away said, hey, this is a great way to get the gospel out. This is a great way to reach a lot of people for the cause of Christ. And so they decided that they wanted to be on radio. Well, there was another group of Christians, oddly enough, the NEA, National Evangelical Association, and they decided along with the radio owners at the time, were going to be the gatekeepers of who could or couldn't be on Christian media. So that's kind of the out of where NRB was formed.
Wow. Just so to say, no, we think a consortium of those of us that are doing, maybe we didn't call it content, creation and production, but those of us that are preaching the sermons, or that are doing the songs, or doing whatever it is that's going on, we don't want to have to be dictated to by somebody else about what we would like to, what we believe is on our heart, or just by belief. We just don't like that idea. Somebody else is not going to let us function that way.
Look, these were solid Americans as well as, Christians. They understood the First Amendment. They believed that they had a right to be on radio, that nobody should be able to control that right of freedom of speech and the free exercise thereof of their religious conscience. So on two sides, so on the religious side, you have the NEA, who wanted to decide, you'd be the gatekeepers of which pastors could be on there and not. On the other side, you had the radio stations that were putting all these restrictions on there. You could only talk less than 15 minutes. You couldn't do this. You couldn't ask. You couldn't raise money. You couldn't, and so they had kind of two sides of the battle that they were going after. So they got together actually at Moody Church in Chicago. They first got together as a meeting within the NEAs. They were all NEA members, and they got together within the NEA, had a meeting, and really tried to, kind of like the reformers, tried to reform the NEA.
Right.
But they were having none of that, so they got together at Moody Church in Chicago and formed the National Religious Broadcasters Association. And the number one purpose of the formation of that association was to fight on behalf of, at that time, those Christian communicators who wanted to be on mass media and in the public square.
How about that? So how much of what the NRB does now is really interacting with Congress and the FCC and other things like this, making sure that Christian voices indeed can be heard and that they're not being discriminated against or, excuse me, given equal time or whatever is the right term for something like that?
Yeah, so just, that was the root in 1944. The first thing they had to do was really advocate with the Federal Communications Commissions to get some of the rules changed to allow Christian broadcasting on there. Then they advocated with the radio stations, and actually by 1945, 46, by 1947, they had gotten all of those things changed.
Wow.
All of those things changed. Broadcasters could be on, they could have a half-hour program, they could read the Bible, they could give their sermons, they could do a Bible study, could do all the things they wanted to do. So over the years, that's the core of what NRB does. If you look at what we do out of the 365 days of the year, it's really advocating on behalf of Christian communicators to make sure that there's no legislation that's going to come through Congress that prohibits them from being able to do that. There's no regulatory issues that are coming through the regulatory environment. The two biggest ones today we deal with are the Federal Communications Commission and the Federal Trade Commission. Those are the two big ones. But actually, to tell you, we deal with a lot of them, especially recently when government was kind of weaponized against Christian communicators. So we ended up dealing with everybody from the Labor Department to Health and Human Services, if you can imagine. So the core of what we do is that advocacy within there. We also do a lot within the judicial system, the legal system. We recently won a lawsuit against the Federal Communications Commission that they were trying to put some of these very onerous regulations on broadcasters that would require them to report basically all of their DEI compliance, all of their diversity, equity, and inclusion compliance. And so we took the Federal Communications Commission to court. We recently won that case. And so that protects our broadcasters, but actually ends up protecting all broadcasters out there from this. So that is really at the core of what we do.
How about that? So that is one of the reasons, I guess, that you're headquartered in Washington, D.C., right? So that you can get over there quick and you can attend hearings and you can know about briefs that are being, you don't want to have to get on a plane from Kansas City or Boise or somewhere and try to huff it over there, right? I mean, it's a big difference.
Yeah, you want to keep your fingers on the pulse. And that's where the pulse is for all of these things, is right there in Washington, D.C.'s. And look, I don't want to say it's all from a negative view either. We do have a lot of stuff we do that's prevention, but we also have a lot that we do as proactive. So we look at laws and legislation that will help the environment for Christian communicators and all of our members. And by the way, let me just stop for a second and tell you, we represent today. 81 years ago, it was radio. And then, of course, as we move through time, radio, television, cable networks, then as cable systems came around, satellite, as that came around, of course, now digital. all things digital, all things streaming. So today the association is very diverse in its membership. We have radio and television owners and radio television program producers, and we have satellite program producers, and we have cable program producers, and then we have podcasters and bloggers and video bloggers and Substackers and TikTokers and Facebookers, you name it, they're all out there. And we also have Christian publishers today representing Christian publishing and authors. And then, of course, almost every church today is in media.
Sure.
Even whether it's in internal media or whether it's media going outside of their walls. So we have a really broad group we look at. And so it's a lot to keep that broad group. And let me give you one quick example, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Please.
Just people don't think. We had some legislation a few years back that would have affected microphones and things that worked in the church, your wireless microphones and the spectrums they were on and interference they might get or licensing you might have to have. So churches out there think, well, that doesn't really affect me. I just maybe stream or whatever. But we were working on a law that could have caused a lot of churches to get licensed or have interference. So it's a broad variety of issues and topics we get involved with.
You can watch the rest of Nick's interview with Troy Miller on the Center for Christian History website at centerforchristianhistory.com. This Week in Christian History is produced for the Center for Christian History by Blue and Gold Media at Mississippi College in cooperation with the MC Department of Communication. For episode transcripts and more information, visit centerforchristianhistory.com. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow the Center for Christian History on Facebook at the Center for Christian History and on Instagram at Christ Hist Today. That's ChristHistToday. Our next podcast episode is coming next week. Thank you for listening.